welcome you all. In this episode, we are discussing about the topic controlling population related problems. Population change refers to alteration in the human characteristics of a society. It encompasses issues such as population growth, movement into or out of country, movement within a country, and demographic changes. We will discuss the issue of urban growth and decline in India. We will also look at some other major issues relating to population change in India and the impacts that they are likely to have on the environment. Apart from a level of population growth, the two most prevalent population trends in India also relate to immigration and demographic changes. The first is that Indian society is aging rapidly, and the second is that we are becoming increasingly multicultural. The significance of these two population trends for Indians' environment will be extremely far-reaching in years to come. In terms of the physical environment, these changes will directly or indirectly affect our patterns of natural resource consumption and therefore the conservation of our natural ecosystems. In terms of the impacts upon the built environment, they will have consequences for the country's level of human capital and hence economic well-being and alter the needs for housing, industry and infrastructure. They will also change India's general social fabrics and cultural characteristics. Analyzing the impacts of population trends such as these are an important features of the study of human geography because they can positively and or negatively impact on our entire society. Another trend affecting population change in India that is touched on this chapter is a recent increase in internal migration out of cities, means movement within India, which is commonly referred to as the nation's sea change. So, we can analyze the subject under following headings: India's population growth, problems of expanding population, major impacts of population, effects of population growth, and finally the significance. India's population growth. The reason for India's greater growth rate per year may be attributed to the women being less educated, the country's GDP and the rate of migration. With less money, India's population will not be suppressed because working class has a greater need for more children for more income. For our country, medical advancements have increased the lifespan of people, thus the number of births exceed the deaths. India also experiences rapid urbanization. This urbanization arises from India's highly insolvent population. People move to the cities in hope of job opportunities. In 2001, the urban population was about 28%, yet by 2025 it is expected to reach 36%. This urbanization causes more growth, especially since the urban poor contribute the most to a growing population because they contribute the most to the labor force. In addition, they continue to reproduce because of the desire for male children, who are considered more efficient in the workforce and are less of a financial liability. A lack of education also contributes to India's growing population. 40% of the world's illiterates live in India. An increase in education would potentially lead to postponed marriage, thus less children would be conceived. An education could also provide people with better jobs, thus the need for children workers would be less. More well-paid jobs in the private sector are provided to the educated. The rapid population growth in many third world countries and persistence of poverty has given rise to the view of overpopulation possibility. There is therefore a major move throughout the world to bring down the growth rate of population. Development experiences of recent years shows that there is a long run trend towards slow growth of population in a country. This is secured by balance between birth and death rates. Before the commencement of modern economic development, countries were in the first stage of demographic transition. At that time, countries had slow population growth because of a balance between high birth and death rates. But as a result of economic development, developed countries have again attained slow growth in their population. Birth and death rates in these have become quite low. Such features have been noticed during the third stage of demographic transition. However, the balance between birth and death rates is upset during the second phase of demographic transition because of the death rates declining faster than the birth rates. The present day developed countries face the problems of explosive increase in population, which has been put under the second phase of demographic transition. It happened more easily because of pleasant circumstances such as vast sparsely inhabited areas existing in those times. But today's developing countries are experiencing a much faster growth in their population under conditions different than those faced by the developed countries. Thus, they are faced with huge problems of imparting education, employment, urban development and environmental degradation. The need to tackle these problems has led to the necessity of a clearer understanding of the relationship between population and development. The major problem faced by the developing countries is to bring down their birth rates, that is fertility. Therefore, understanding of the relationship between development and fertility becomes very significant. There are experts who think that unless fertility is first restricted, sustained economic development is not possible. At the other extreme, there are others who assume that fertility is dependent upon economic development. This means that we should concentrate our efforts on development planning, which would in turn reduce fertility. Thus, it seems that the nature of the relationship between fertility and development is reciprocal. As the exact nature of this relationship is yet to be fully established, the proper course for a developing country would be to follow integrated policies in regard to both population and development. Coming to problems of expanding population. Food production. Food production was 55 million tons in 1951 to 52. It increased to 72 million tons in 1955 to 56 and 103 million tons in 1970 to 71. But the per capita food supply has gone down from 360 grams to 348 grams. As against the average normal of 2400 calories, an Indian gets only 1400 calories. Clothing. Against the per capita minimum of 25 meters per annum, the supply is only 14 meters. So, there is scarcity of clothing due to population explosion. Employment. In spite of creation of 31 million additional jobs, the number of unemployed has gone up from 3.5 million to 10 millions in 1966. It is over 25 million at present. Education. There has been an overall expansion of education by 30%. Still, there are 63.8 million children who are not attending schools. This is likely to produce behavioral disorders in children. The number of juvenile criminals may be increased, thus producing additional social problems. Next is the shelter. With an ever increasing population, shelter and healthy houses are not available to everyone. Coming to health. Increase in population has caused an increased pollution of air, water and soil. Demand for health programs increases with an increase in population. All these factors have an adverse effect on health. General population characteristics. India is made up of over 655 million people. When considering the country's total land mass, this figure is high. The demographic trends of spatial localities, which includes factors such as age and gender balances, employment type and status, levels of education, quality of healthcare services, life expectancy, linguistic orientation and family structure are ascertained by national census data collected by the Indian Statistical Organization once in every 5 years. Population growth is important in order to sustain our economy. It also helps in high standard of living. More people will mean that the human impact upon the environment will be greater than it already is. In a general sense, India's population is presently dominated by middle-aged, middle-income earner. Over the past few decades, populations in our rural areas have drifted towards cities because of a reduction in goods and services and raising unemployment levels. Racial population characteristics. The demographics of India are inclusive of the second most populous country in the world. Already containing 17.5% of the world's population, India is projected to be the world's most populous country by 2025, surpassing China, its population reaching 1.6 billion by 2050. Its population growth rate is 1.41%, ranking second in the world in 2010. Indian population reached the million marks in 2000. India has more than 50% of its population below the age of 25 and more than 65% below the age of 35. It is expected that in 2020, the average age of an Indian will be 29 years compared to 37 for China and 48 for Japan, and by 2030, India's dependency ratio should be just over 0.4. India has more than 2000 ethnic groups and every major religion is represented as 4 major families of languages as well as 2 language isolates. Coming to major impacts of population. Aging population. The aging nature of India's population is currently a major focus of government policy. Over the next few decades, it is predicted that India's proportion of people aged over 65 years will grow substantially. At the same time, the percentage of people less than 15 years old looks set to decline at a similar rapid pace. The main reasons behind this are people are having fewer children later in life. The life expectancy of most non-indigenous Indians is increasing, a condition largely due to better medical technology and reduced mortality rates. Negative effects. Implications of the aging population will largely be in relation to India's built environments. As more people retire, there will be a reduction in human capital which will impact negatively on the economy. Having a strong economy is dependent upon having a large working population, as this ensures that people can maintain their standards of living. It will also pose a greater burden to working taxpayers, as it means that less public money will be available for infrastructure, industry development, education and general health and welfare services required to support younger generations. Positive effects. It should be noted, however, that not all the implications of a non-working aging population will come at an economic disadvantage to the population. A healthy aging population can increase social capital and reduce expenditure on certain community services. Retirees are more likely to participate in volunteer activities that are benefit to the community. The healthier India's elders, the better able they are to share their knowledge, skills and experience with younger generations. Multicultural population. Although India's rate of immigration is relatively low, the range of different linguistic and cultural backgrounds from which our migrant populations originate is greatly changing the social and cultural fabrics of the country. Today, quite a major number of India's population was born overseas, which means that our racial makeup and linguistic composition is now extremely diverse. Although English is by far the dominant language, a significant amount of a population speaks native language at home. Some schools, although not many, now even have bilingual teaching programs. The main language groups in India in order to dominance are Hindi, native languages and English. Distribution of the migrant population. The place migrants choose to settle greatly affect Indian environments. The distribution of the migrant population in India plays a key role in the formation, funding and administration of any governmental policies and services. These are essential for maintaining overseas migrants' smooth integration into Indian society. One of the main factors determining where migrants choose to live in India is the settlement patterns established by previous arrivals of the same or similar ethnic backgrounds. Other influences are the level of employment opportunities a given area provides and even the site where a migrant initially entered the country. For these reasons, the vast majority of migrants in India live in the nation's capital cities, particularly metropolitan cities like Delhi, Mumbai and Bangalore, etc. Rural India does not tend to attract many overseas migrants because its towns are predominantly native language speaking. Increasing multiculturalism. Although we are often unaware of its ubiquity and influence, culture plays an important role in shaping the way people within a society go about their daily lives. It influences our perception of the world, our attitudes towards the environment and our abilities to interact with one another. A society's culture is neither rigid nor permanent. It is fluid and in a constant state of change, reflecting the natural way that community and the environments surrounding them also change. Increases in the racial and ethnic diversity of a population therefore need to be accompanied by social policies that recognize the cultural transformations that multiculturalism brings. Failure to acknowledge this not only increases the risk of social exclusion and inequality between different groups and different geographical areas, but it also reduces a society's ability to benefit from the many positives that multiculturalism can bring. Coming to effects of rapid population growth. Let us now look at a few of the effects due to population growth. Providing employment to growing population. This is so because in developing economies, majority of the population is illiterate. The burden of school age population has already shown signs of becoming unbearable. The proportion of children in schools is less increasing fast and vast numbers are still not covered. The absolute number or illiterate persons increases every year. This is only an indication of the wastage of human resources for want of appropriate development opportunities. Problem of utilization of manpower. Better educated manpower aspires for occupations of greater prestige which are opened up by the new development efforts. Because of its capital intensive nature, the ability of the new economy for employment generation become restricted. Simultaneously, it renders many of the old occupations out of date and redundant. As a result, underemployment and unemployment, including unemployment of educated persons, increases. Thus, there is wastage of even developed human capital, overstrained infrastructure. Facilities such as housing, transportation, healthcare and education become inadequate. The worst symptoms of congestion in every aspect of living conditions are manifested in the urban areas. In the countries such as India, a situation of over-urbanization prevails which puts unbearable strain on urban amenities. Overcrowded houses, slums and unsanitary localities, traffic congestion and crowded hospitals have become common features in the developing countries. Pressure on land and other renewable natural resources, common properties such as forest and water are overexploited. This results in deforestation and desertification with permanent damage to the renewable resources. Increased cost of production. Human initiative and technological advancements make it possible to increase production of goods and services. But it must be kept in mind that the cost of production of the basic necessities of life such as food increases when the population is growing fast and vast land are brought into cultivation with costly irrigation. Inequitable distribution of income. Both at the international and national levels, income disparities increase. The increase in gross national product is greatly reduced in per capita terms on account of the rapidly growing population. In the face of a rapidly growing population, the major concern of a developing country tends to be focused more on economic growth, such as consideration of unequal distribution of income are pushed to background. So, inequalities within the country tend to widen further. Coming to significance. The development of a population policy facilitates the scientific and speedy advancement of a family planning program in any country. The importance of regulating rapid growth of population was known to humanity ever since Robert Malthus, the father of population sciences, wrote his famous essays on population, focusing on the need for accepting family planning and beyond family planning measures. However, population policy developed only after the middle of the 20th century. Definite policy formulation for the control of rapid growth of population were adopted by the United Nations as late as 1974. Nevertheless, you may have happy to hear that a pioneering country which adopted population policy as a part of developmental programs as early as in 1952 was India. Both our policy developed into a comprehensive plan of section only from 1976. Seen in terms of ongoing development models, one of the most serious problems faced by the developing countries is the control of the rapid rate of growth of population. It has become therefore necessary to involve an appropriate population policy. Coming to conclusion, when a population grows rapidly, it can put great stress on an area such as community or a country. When sudden extreme population growth occurs, food will become a prized possession, more people will die due to disease and war, and the economy will be affected. So, in order to prevent these entire problems, the main remedy is to controlling the population growth. So, students, hope you all enjoy the session. Thank you all. We'll meet in the next episode. Until then, take care.